Is this thing on? Welcome back to Big Mouth and fancy seeing you here in June. A very welcome, my friends, and especially my enemies. Come in, sit down, no touching. I don't do the touching. And welcome to Wednesday's edition of the dceu Daily. I want to tell you a story. No, don't go away, don't go away. I want to tell you a very interesting story. Once upon a time, there was this film called Justice League. We saw trailers, we saw quotes from the director. We were very excited to see the first team up between the DC characters in live action. The trailers looked amazing, but all of a sudden, the director Zack Snyder, who had also delivered the controversial and divisive Man of Steel and Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice, announced he was going to walk away, citing the reason that his daughter had ended her life and that he thought he could carry on working through it to help him, but he said he couldn't. So he said that he brought in Joss Whedon to finish this movie, to edit it, you know, to shine it up. But it wasn't going to be a different movie. Joss was just helping a friend out. We now know that this is not true. We saw Justice League and we know it was put together. It was reshot. It was marvelised. It was brightened up. Superman was making uncomfortable smiles. So was Batman. All of a sudden, we saw a Frankenstein's monster. The audience and the consumer were betrayed. We didn't get what we paid for. Let's be clear here. When these people say to us, we don't have a right to complain because it's up to the movie maker and the company and the studio because they spend the money, they conned us. They told us we were getting a Zack Snyder film, and we got a Zack Snyder kind of film with a Joss Whedon kind of film with Kevin Sugihara's nervousness and fear, and he decided to create something else because you can't take a skeleton of an overweight person and make it into a gym body, into a supermodel, and this is what Kevin Sugihara attempted to do. So all of a sudden, there was rumours of a Snyder cut, an almost completed movie of Snyder's vision. One guy starts a petition. This petition was fraudulent. So we thought the movement and the chat about this cut would go. But the movement became bigger and bigger. Then Ben Fritz did his hit piece, right? And that kind of made us think that maybe we should step away from this. But then we re-energised and we came back. Now, all of a sudden, every piece of highbrow media is talking about our movement and the Snyder Cut. So Helen from Empire magazine and The Telegraph has done this really big, broad article. And Helen headlined this in a very, let's say, triggering way. So we are going to read this. We are going to read this article together. I haven't read it apart from the headline. And we're going to see, because I discovered Helen yesterday on Twitter, and she was being kind of harassed by one of our movement, one of our fans, which is very regrettable. And I just did a quote tweet as a joke. I said, look, I've never heard of her because I hadn't to that point. I said, but she looks fit. I just said it as a joke because, you know, us guys are not meant to talk like that about women anymore. But she does. Her profile picture looks glorious. Anyway, right, I got to talking to her and, she, you know, she's unregrettable about the article. But let's be clear here. A highbrow movie pundit from Empire and The Telegraph, right, is talking about the Snyder Cut. They're all talking about the Snyder Cut. This is now massive. This is becoming a situation that's being taken over, taken away from the movement. And now what's kind of embarrassing for us, while we're arguing with each other, these people are doing our job for us. And what are we doing? We're attacking them. Will Rowlands, right? Will Rowlands, who started this movement, this Project Comic-Con, you know, John Aaron Garza, you know, who's made great videos, spoken so beautifully about Zack Snyder and how he feels about him, are at war on Twitter. And now the movie junkie's at it again. These are three prominent figures from our movement, people we look up to, and they're arguing like children. Let me be clear. I am neither taking John Aaron Garza's side on this, the Screen Junkie, sorry, or Will Rowland's. I respect all of them. I follow all of them. I want to continue to follow all of them, but I will stop following them if they don't stop acting like children. Now, I don't know if they're doing this on purpose to hire their profile, or if these are real arguments. So how did this all kick off? This kicked off over John Aaron Garza's $40 million theory to finish the Snyder Cut. Now, I don't know if John's right. I read what he said months ago, and I said that it is impossible for anyone who is not in that production to know how much it will cost. Right, Mark Hughes has said that it's 90% done, but 90% could still mean that it would cost 40 million. Now, 40 million to a studio isn't a lot of money, let's be clear. That's a quarter of a real movie, right? But will they get that money back? I think, I don't know. I don't know if they would get that money back. It depends how they do it. If it was on HBO Max, then subscriptions would absolutely take them over that. DVD and Blu-ray, could they make 10 million, 15 million? I don't know, but this is the problem. And everyone's upset. Will Rowlands is upset with John Aaron Garza for bringing in this $40 million, kind of thing. But I'm all about points of view and respecting different points of view. I'm kind of miffed why Will is so upset, but then I like Will. I like Will a lot. He's done so much for this movement. And then I look at John Aaron Garza. He's done a lot for this movement as well. But it's very uncomfortable and it's embarrassing for the rest of us having these two people, intelligent people, acting like children. I would absolutely ask them to stop. So right now we're going to read Helen's article and let's see what she's had to say. Remember, Helen is a highbrow movie critic, movie pundit. She really doesn't talk about mainstream movies. She talks about indie movies. She's very intelligent. She's very clever. She knows her stuff. So let's see what she has to say. Release the Snyder Cut. Why Justice League fans are obsessed with a movie that may not exist. Now, this is why this guy was getting into her on Twitter. Now, even though I think the title is bollocks and triggering, and maybe it's there for that very reason. Look, I don't want to get into it with Helen about this. At the end of the day, I know what Zach said. Zach said it's almost done and it exists. And even what Kevin Smith said about it being kind of not a film but kind of a print isn't exactly true. If something's 90% done, how can it just be a print? Now, I know that because I'm an Iron Apple reality star. I'm developing the first English-speaking dramas here on Super TV. I know how the things work, but I don't know how Hollywood works. And Zack Snyder has a different way of working. But let's read this article. So, fan disappointment with the cinema cut of Zack Snyder's Justice League has led to one of the most passionate fan campaigns the internet has ever seen. Will it work? Will it work? Asks Helen O'Hara. Now, let's get this clear. The Release the Snyder Cut campaign is the biggest fan movement ever. Nothing's lasted this long. No one's ever made such a dent in a studio before. They've kept silent. They didn't go to San Diego Comic-Con. They knew what we were planning with the posters and the billboards. So there's never been a fan campaign like this. It's extraordinary, and this is why highbrow people like Helen, want to talk about this. There is a long history of wild publicity stunts at San Diego Comic-Con, the annual gathering of geeks that film studios use to launch their biggest films. But this year, the most talked about campaign was not a studio extravaganza, but a fan-funded advertising blitz. And this is the thing, we're massive. Nothing like this has ever been attempted before. And we are being talked about in the Telegraph. Before you argue with each other, think about how far we've come. All over the city, bus adverts and billboards promoted their dream, capped by a plane flying over the convention centre for 2 hours on the Friday morning. Hang on a minute, I've got to do something. Sorry about that. They wanted me to subscribe to their bloody whatever, right? So anyway, let's start again. All over the city, bus adverts and billboards promoted their dream, capped by a plane flying over the convention centre for 2 hours on the Friday morning, with a banner saying WB released the Snyder Cut of Justice League. It's the latest salvo in an often rowdy 2-year campaign by fans of director Zack Snyder that began just days after the release of Warner Bros. Justice League in November 2017. A film begun by Snyder and credited to him, but finished off by Joss Whedon. The big budget team-up of DC's biggest heroes under Ben Affleck's Batman, Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman, underperformed with critics and at the box office, but under the hashtag Release the Snyder Cut, a hardcore group of fans remain convinced that a better version of the film exists, and they are determined to see it on screen. It does exist. Snyder long ago established his comic fan credentials with visually dazzling, remarkably faithful adaptations of 300 and Watchmen. Well, actually, Helen, not everyone agrees with that, but anyway. He began to tackle DC superhero legends in 2013's Man of Steel, casting Henry Cavill in a darker, dialed-back take on Superman's origin story that gave The Last Son of Krypton a hint of Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy. Nolan was a producer on the film, and also, Helen, he co-wrote this film with David S. Goyer, so that's why it feels really similar. Snyder followed that with 2016's Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice, a face-off between DC and Warner's biggest heroes. Ben Affleck was cast opposite Cavill as Batman, and despite some pre-release mockery for his bulked-up look, did a credible job, with Gal Gadot nearly stealing the film when she donned the Wonder Woman armour for a third-act fight scene. Brilliant. Brilliant Wonder Woman, simple as that. Crucially, however, the film created a divide between Snyder's hardcore fans and critics. The latter found the story muddled in the film's 151-minute theatrical cut, with the two heroes apparently snapping at each other without much effort to reason out their differences. Fans maintain that the visual storytelling and mythology made up for any shortcomings, and they unreservedly adored Snyder's longer Ultimate Edition cut. Its extra 31 minutes made clear that Jesse Eisenberg's Lex Luthor manipulated the hero's conflict into being and provided important context for the super punching. The theatrical release had been cut to fit a WB-mandated running time and might have fared better with critics. Its ultimate form, the fans believed that the same would have been proved true of Snyder's next film. This is the problem, right? WB never wanted Zack Snyder to run this universe. They brought in Christopher Nolan. I've told you this before. He said, look, I ain't got the time or the inclination to run a franchise. So he brought in Zack Snyder and his wife Deb to do it. But that's not what Warner Brothers wanted. They wanted Christopher Nolan to mold this. This is where it went wrong. And Christopher Nolan was so insistent because, of course, they want a good relationship with Nolan for the future because he's a big deal. And this is where the DCEU really came into the troubled waters. And then they brought in Jeff Johns and John Berg. Too many cooks spoilt the broth. And this is where we are now. But in fact, now they've brought in Walter Hamada from New Line Cinema. And he's doing a fantastic job. We will talk about Joker movie later on in the video. When Batman v Superman's Ultimate Edition was released, Snyder was hard at work on Justice League, set for release in November 2017. This would be a team-up of Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, and 3 other DC heroes, all of whom would then be spun off into their own franchises, and a rejoinder to Marvel's success with Avengers in the comics. Justice League predates the Marvel team. Absolutely, we predate everything Marvel, by the way. But Warner Brothers was nervous. Batman v Superman grossed well under $1 billion, which must have disappointed the studio given the presence of its biggest superhero guns. And after 2 of Nolan's trilogy passed the $1 billion mark, Marvel meanwhile had romped to $1.5 billion worldwide with Avengers and passed the $1 billion mark again with Iron Man 3 and Captain America Civil War. Unthinkably, the solo Wonder Woman film, with a light, optimistic feel, more akin to Marvel's approach, and Snyder's world made $821 million in early 2017, nearly matching Snyder's better established heroes. Right, I'm going to disagree here with Helen. Wonder Woman is one of the best superhero films ever made. It is nothing like the MCU, nothing. There are really, really dark elements to this film, but it strikes a balance. There's a little bit more humour, but the reason Wonder Woman is so good, because it tells the hero's journey so well. What Patty Jenkins achieved with Gal was a beautiful thing, and it's one of my favourite superhero films. You have a woman, a heroic woman, sitting there with those men, listening to their sob stories, listening to their hard luck stories. I never see Gal's Wonder Woman as sexualised. Yes, she's an attractive woman, but it's what's coming out of the soul of her performance. This film is nothing like an MCU film, and I will argue with anyone who says different. WB appeared to conclude that Snyder's films were too gloomy as production moved into 2017. There were reports of reshoots with Joss Whedon, director of Marvel's Avengers and Avengers Age of Ultron, among the writers recruited to tweak the script. Then tragedy struck. Snyder's 20-year-old daughter Autumn died in March 2017, and while he initially tried to work through his grief, he realised by May that he needed to step back from the film to be with his family. I know the fans are going to be worried about the movie, but there are 7 other kids who need me, he said. Right, anyone who's lost a child would naturally not want to be at work, but we now know that Zack wanted to carry on and finish this film. We know that Zack was fired, and this was used as kind of a spin situation. So at the end of the day, Autumn's death, absolutely tragic. I would not know how I would feel if this happened to one of my nieces, absolutely. But let's be clear, Snyder was fired from the DCEU. He was fired from Justice League. That's the truth. And that's the truth that no journalist has got the guts to talk about. Snyder was said to have turned down a delayed release date. This is not true. This is absolutely not true. It's Kevin Sugihara, the then CEO, right, who basically was sleeping with a woman and getting her jobs, right? The one who was sacked, yeah? He was the one who didn't want the delay, right? Let's be clear again. So Warner, listen to this. Not clear how long the studio offered. No, the offer was never made. The studio did not want a delay. We're not putting this on Zack Snyder, and this is why Helen's found problems on Twitter. But I'm not that short-sighted, and I don't go attacking people for saying things I don't agree with. Right. So Warner Brothers appointed Whedon with Snyder's apparent blessing to direct as well as write the reshoot. The directing is minimal, and it has to adhere to the style and tone and the template that Zack set, said the then Warner Brothers picture president Toby Emmerich. We're not introducing any new characters. It's the same characters in some new scenes. Listen to this, right? He's handling the baton to Joss, but of course has really been set by Zack. I still believe that despite this tragedy, we'll still end up with a great movie. Look, the Justice League movie is watchable. It's really good in places. It's even better than the first Avengers movie in places. Some of the sequences are beautiful. The race between the Flash and Superman, there's lots of good stuff in this film. But at the end of the day, it is not a great movie, and Toby Emmerich lied. He publicly lied. We didn't ask this question. When Zack left, why were they doing reshoots? Why were reshoots needed? There were no reshoots needed because Zack had completed his vision. They sacked him. They were doing reshoots to change the template of this movie. We now know this now. We are not idiots, right? But it doesn't mean we need to go and attack people who see things differently. That maintain the fans behind release the Snyder Cut is where it all went wrong. Is the hectic 6 months between Whedon's arrival and the film's release, new scenes had to be shot and slotted into the film. Nothing had to be shot. Existing scenes had to be finished, and the tone of the reshoots and the original materials had to be matched. While the whole was trimmed to a running time just shy of 2 hours, another problem for the fans, by the way. Original composer Junkie XL, a longtime Snyder collaborator, was meanwhile replaced by veteran Danny Elfman. This was another way they were trying to marvelise this film. Again, I was excited by Joss Whedon's introduction at first, and Elfman. I like Elfman. I like his scores, but we didn't see what was truly going on. That they wanted to change what Zack was doing. Now, if they could change what Zack was doing and make a great movie, maybe that would have been okay. But they didn't do that. What they should have done was they were in a position because of Christopher Nolan refusing their offer to mold this universe, and then kind of he forced Zack Snyder onto them because of that situation. And by the time Batman v Superman was in production, Nolan had forced them to push through the shooting for Batman v Superman, right? Because he was protecting Zack Snyder. And this is why they got into this problem. So they decided that Zack Snyder just wasn't for them, and he was making a movie that there was no way they could release, right? They should have said, right, Joss, we're delaying this movie, we're bidding everything that Zack's done, make your own movie, right? But this is the template. And then we would have got something amazing. But we didn't get that. They wanted to release on the same date, not Zack Snyder, them, Kevin Sujihara. Let's be clear, let's speak truths. Let's not try and defend big corporate studios and companies. Now, I've kind of set a balance on my videos and said I understand where Warner Brothers were coming from, but we've also got to see the other side of it as well. Right. Yet, the result pleased almost no one. There were near universal complaints from the fans and critics of the unevenness of tone, inconsistent plotting, and sometimes disappointing effects. I'm going to say something here. A lot of families and young children went to see this film, and they loved it. A lot of diehard DC Comics fans went to see Joss's cut and said it reminded them of the animated series. So, even though many of us who loved what Zack did with BVS and MOS and was excited to see his vision, actually, this film set the template for the audience that Warner Brothers wanted to attract. Unfortunately, it didn't make enough money to make a profit. They broke even, and that was it. And that's the truth. Again, and I like to speak truth. I didn't like the theatrical version for many reasons, says Will Rowland, a Snyder Cut campaigner and one of the organisers of Project Comic Con. The advertising campaign at SDCC this year, it did not continue the ongoing plot and tone. The theatrical cut switched from Snyder Cut footage to Joss footage. Like a child had edited it. Dark tone to bright, back to dark. The new dialogue was cringy, something you don't get in the series today. It didn't have the heart that the previous films had. All the connections were ignored. It was simply dreadful. Looking back, what they did to that film was so disrespectful to all that had worked so hard on. The art was removed and corporate unqualified interference made it look cheap. This is true. A TV movie at best. I wouldn't go that far, but yes. So the campaign for the Snyder Cut began. The original petition had just under 180,000 signatures. Fans donated over 100,000 to the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention in lieu of spending that money on DVD and Blu-ray copies of the existing cut to show Warner Brothers that they were missing out. Initially, it wasn't clear if a Snyder Cut even existed or what state it was in. The director eventually confirmed that he left behind a 214-minute version of the film. It seems unlikely, given that length, that this was ever a final cut with studio sign-off, but perhaps it reflects Snyder's original hope to make 2 Justice League movies back-to-back and tell a much longer story than we saw. It's complete in the sense of what he shot. He shot everything he wanted, right? But it probably hasn't got music on it. The effects are uncompleted, but we have been told it's 90% done. So all Warner Brothers have to do is bring Zack back. Let us see this, and let's move on and look forward to what the fantastic, groundbreaking Walter Hamada is trying to do and what Todd Phillips is doing with the DC Black label. Let's move on from this. Just let us see the film. Come on. Compromise, Warner Brothers. That's all we want. We know from Snyder's comments that his cut involved a much longer prologue showing the ancient attempt by bad guy Steppenwolf, voiced by is it Kieran Hines, and his boss, Darkseid, to invade Earth, with War Gods, Ares, Stuntman, Nick McKinless, David Thewlis leading the resistance. There was also more time devoted to Ray Fisher's Cyborg and his origin story, and it was the Wonder Woman who ultimately slew Steppenwolf, though not before the League had a long-distance chat with Darkseid. All that was cut out or back in the theatrical version. So yeah, basically what Helen's saying there is dead right. She's saying that we had lots of Darkseid, and Wonder Woman actually does take the lead, kind of. And this film has a lot of Wonder Woman in it, in the theatrical cut I'm talking about. And the stuff between her and Ben Affleck's Batman was really, really good, actually. The fans from detective work based on stills, trailer footage and production materials are convinced that the Snyder Cut was nearly finished. They maintain that Warner Brothers held the material back, chiefly to protect the egos of the executives responsible for its squelching, something that they hope will change with the arrival of the new president and CEO and Sarnoff later this month. But industry experts are skeptical. Are skeptical that the film could have been that close to finish. While Snyder does work fast and efficiently on his effects-heavy films, it is essentially unheard of for any major blockbuster, let alone with a cut nearly 4 hours long without studio sign-off, to have near-complete VFX 6 months out. Most tentpole films like Justice League see final effects still being delivered weeks or even days before the release. Right, let's be clear, Helen, and to everyone. These debates of work prints, of uncompletion, it's irrelevant. The effects have not been completed. We know that. The music hasn't been recorded or been put on the film yet. We know that. And this is what this movement's about. Getting Zack back at Warner Brothers, right, to finish this movie. This isn't a debate, right? And we mustn't allow anyone to cloud what we're trying to do by making this a debate. A VFX expert working for a major effects house is pretty sure that their company had not delivered anything close to final on much of the film, and doubts that any other visual effects providers on the film were further along. The movie was still months away from delivery when Joss came on board. It seems very unlikely to me that there was anything close to a releasable cut of the film. But in another way, if there was a near-finished movie that everyone was happy with, then WB would have got the editor to complete it, rather than drop another 30, 40 million into it. Right, again, this isn't a debate. We know the effects haven't been completed. We know this film isn't done. We've been told it's 90% done, right? Or whatever the percentage is, this isn't a debate. Let's stop going over this old, boring ground. We're wasting time. Wasting time. Filmmaker Kevin Smith, interviewed just this weekend after talking to people in the know, appeared to bolster that conclusion, though he also lacked first-hand knowledge of the cut. Yeah, this is the issue though, isn't it? It's not a finished movie by any stretch of the imagination, he said. I would assume, based on what I've been told, that large sections of the Snyder Cut are, pre-viz, with a lot of green screen. We're not talking finished movie. It was a movie that people in production could watch and fill in the blanks. It was certainly not meant for a mass consumption. No, it isn't a debate. We know that. We know this film has yet to be completed. Stop taking the narrative to a place. It's pointless to talk about this. Pointless. We know it's not done. So if the Snyder Cut is to see the light of day, it will either require tens of millions of dollars more VFX work, or it will appear with storyboards and animatics, where its most spectacular moments should be. Perhaps that will be enough for the fans. Snyder has delivered engaging, informed breakdowns of his storyboards and pre-visualizations. Try putting a fruit pastel in your mouth and saying that. I've been reading for a long time. I'm entitled to a cough, right? As a Blu-ray feature in the past, and he could talk fans through the missing pieces. But would the director, a perfectionist in his visual style, be happy with that? No, it ain't happening. This film must be completed or we don't want to see it. It's as simple as that, right? Again, this is a conversation not worth having, right? This is not what we're trying to achieve. It also seems unlikely that Junkie XL's score was complete. Again, we know this. He planned to use themes from his previous work on Man of Steel and Batman v Superman, but it would again be unusual for a composer to have finished much music 5 months before release. So that too could take time and money to deliver. With Snyder largely silent on the matter, possibly for contractual reasons, and Warner Brothers themselves withholding comment, it's hard to be sure how much would need to be done to prepare any sort of release. But the fans' conviction that there's a little to do but print the disc seems misplaced. You're wrong, Helen. This is again why you're getting negative attention. And again, I don't agree with that negative attention. But we don't think that. Most of us are very intelligent. There might be some idiots who think that. And that's fine, right? People can think what they want. We know this is not a completed movie. It's not an issue. It shouldn't be part of the narrative. It's boring. We know that Zack has to complete this movie, so let him complete this movie. Even if more is needed, however, the fans believe that a small investment on the Snyder Cut could go some way to recouping the studio's losses on the theatrical version, which grossed $657.9 million on a reportedly $300 million budget and was a major net loss for the studio. But they got their money back. They got what they spent and a little bit more. Are we agreed on that? Yes, right? I believe Ann Sarnoff can rectify those mistakes by letting Zack Snyder finish it, says Chris Von Svensson, another vocal proponent of Release the Snyder Cut. We love Chris, don't we? WB wants to be a director-driven studio, and if they want to promote that statement, then they will have to let Zack Snyder release his version. I think the potential return on the investment is huge. With a movie that is mostly complete, the investment is lower than projects from scratch. So the campaign continues with plans to post Sarnoff printed Snyder dollars to represent the money the studio could be making. In this war between fans and the studio, the campaigners have taken heart in the change of management of Warner's and Snyder's recent willingness to release behind-the-scenes stills and concept art on his Vero account. But the outlook remains unclear. While the campaign is loud and impassioned, the financial maths for a proper release may never add up. And that is the end. That is, I had to correct her a couple of times, but that is actually a brilliant, wide-ranging article by Helen. And even though I can see why a couple of fans attacked her, I can't justify that. And really, she didn't say anything wrong. It's just an opinion from an outsider. So that is a really good article. We are being spoken about on the Telegraph, everyone. Think about that. Helen is talking about this movement. Helen is a highbrow movie talker. She's brilliant. She's brilliant. She's intelligent. And she's done a really good job. And I really enjoyed reading her article. Now we have got lots of buzz about the Joker movie. Lots and lots of buzz. And basically, the director of the Toronto Film Festival says that the Joker movie is a modern-day classic. He talks about Joaquin Phoenix's performance, the writing, the directing. I told you from the beginning of this year when I saw the test screening that it wouldn't be Endgame that everyone would be talking about by the end of this year, because Endgame is just a money grab that wastes 2 hours just to say, look, we're doing a 3-hour movie. We're massive, right? But it wasn't. It wasn't. It was all garnish, and it was a boring film as far as I'm concerned. But the Joker movie is massive to what Walter Hamada is attempting to do here. Massive. He's taken a DC character and saying, let's do a kind of Scorsese 70s, 80s movie with this. He's telling his origin story. It's exciting. There is so much buzz about this movie. Everyone's talking about it now. Highbrow critics are very excited. This is going to introduce a new audience to DC, the kind of audience that frowns on comic book movies, that frowns on the success of the MCU. People are so hungry for real movies, real content, not to have political commentary in their face. But one thing you are going to see in this film is male mental health. It's represented in this story, this original story of how Arthur Fleck becomes the Joker. It is compelling. No one has ever achieved this before. You are all going to stand up and take notice. This is the new DC universe of movies, and it's run by very, very intelligent people. We now know who is running this franchise, and as you can tell by my posture, I couldn't be more excited. I will see you tomorrow.